Ladies and gentlemen, today we explore a truth about love, one that is deeper than mere affection or romantic pursuit. It is a truth that resides within each of us, hidden beneath the layers of our conscious mind, waiting to be understood. It is a truth that, once realized, transforms not only our relationships with others, but also our relationship with ourselves. That truth is simple. Love is not something we search for outside of us, but something that rises from within, only to be fully realized when we understand ourselves. The inner self as the source of love. Love, in its purest form, is not an external force we must chase, nor is it a fleeting emotion that comes and goes. It is an expression of the depth of who we are. So often we look outside ourselves, toward another person, toward the validation of the world, to find the love we crave. But the truth is that love comes when we begin to know and embrace our own inner complexity. Our true selves are made up of a multitude of parts, many of which lie hidden in the unconscious corners of our psyche. These parts, the dreams, desires, wounds, and fears, hold the key to the love we seek. When we understand the richness of our inner world, we begin to understand how to love ourselves fully. And in that self-understanding, love naturally flows to us. It is like the sun that warms the earth. Once we open ourselves to its rays, we bask in its warmth. The more we understand our own heart, the more we open the space for others to love us, not for an image we project, but for the wholeness we embrace. The balance between light and shadow. In our quest for love, we often seek only the bright, perfect aspects of ourselves, the traits we deem worthy of love. But true love, the kind that is transformative and enduring, requires us to embrace all parts of ourselves, the light and the shadow. We are not merely our achievements or our virtues. We are also our struggles, our fears, and our imperfections. Love thrives in the integration of all these aspects. It is in embracing both our strengths and our flaws that we become whole. When we can love ourselves with all of our contradictions, we no longer seek to be loved for an idealized version of ourselves. Instead, we offer our full, authentic selves, imperfect, vulnerable, and beautiful in our complexity. And when we do this, we invite others to love us in the same way. True love cannot exist without this acceptance of both the light and the shadow. The power of archetypes and connection. There are universal forces, archetypal energies, that shape our lives and relationships. These forces, though often unconscious, influence our behavior, our choices, and our connections with others. Love comes to us when we begin to understand these patterns. When we recognize the archetypes that play out in our lives, whether they are the lover, the hero, the caregiver, or the rebel, we begin to see the deeper currents that guide us. By recognizing these forces within us, we connect to something greater than ourselves. We align with the universal truths that bind humanity together, and in doing so, we resonate with the deep, eternal love that exists in the world. Understanding these archetypal energies helps us move beyond surface-level interactions and into meaningful, soulful relationships. Love comes to us when we align ourselves with these deeper forces, when we are willing to step into the roles we are meant to play and to connect with others on a level that transcends the ordinary. True love is a concept that many people have pursued, sung about, written about, and dreamed of for centuries. Yet, the essence of love remains a mystery to most, often misunderstood and elusive. The common narrative suggests that love is something to be found outside of ourselves. We are conditioned to believe that love is a destination, a treasure to be uncovered in the arms of another person or in the validation of the world. But what if the truth is that love doesn't need to be found at all? What if, instead, love is something that arises from within us? What if the understanding of our true inner selves is the very key to unlocking the love we seek? To begin with, we must acknowledge that love is not merely an emotion or an external force. It is a profound reflection of who we are at our core. So often we look outward, towards others, towards external validation, towards societal standards and expectations, to fulfill the longing we have for love. We are led to believe that love comes from the approval of others, from the acceptance of our social roles, or from the validation of our appearance, achievements, or successes. These beliefs, however, are rooted in a superficial understanding of love, one that is built on external conditions and external validation. In truth, love is not something we need to earn from the outside world, nor is it something that can be given or taken away at will. Love is something that flows naturally from within us when we come to know ourselves fully. When we begin the journey of understanding ourselves, we discover that love is inherently linked to self-awareness. Love cannot truly exist outside of us unless we first cultivate it within ourselves. It's easy to become consumed with the idea of finding love, to feel as though it is something distant or out of reach. But when we begin to turn inward and explore our own hearts, minds, and souls, we begin to realize that love is already present. It has always been present, within us, waiting to be acknowledged, understood, and embraced. The process of understanding ourselves is not just about knowing our thoughts or actions, but also about connecting with the deeper, more unconscious layers of our being. It is about becoming aware of the hidden parts of our psyche, the parts that may have been repressed or neglected, the parts that often hold the key to true love. This journey of self-awareness requires an openness to explore all aspects of our inner world. It calls us to confront the parts of ourselves that we might find uncomfortable or difficult to accept. Often, the parts of ourselves that we reject or ignore are the very parts that need our love and attention the most. These hidden or shadow aspects of ourselves hold the potential for growth, transformation, and ultimately love. When we begin to understand these parts of ourselves, we can begin to integrate them, allowing them to become an authentic part of our identity. This integration is essential because love cannot exist in isolation. It is only when we bring all aspects of our being into harmony that we can fully experience the love that we seek. Moreover, understanding ourselves means acknowledging our desires, fears, and vulnerabilities. We are all complex beings with layers of emotions, experiences, and memories that shape who we are. Our desires, both conscious and unconscious, are a crucial part of our self-understanding. These desires speak to the deepest longings of our hearts and reveal to us what we truly need to feel whole and fulfilled. But it is not enough to simply be aware of our desires. We must also recognize the fears that often accompany them. Fear can block our ability to receive love, as it causes us to push others away or to avoid being vulnerable. By recognizing and understanding these fears, we can begin to dismantle the walls that we've built around our hearts, allowing ourselves to be open to love in its fullest form. Vulnerability is perhaps the most challenging aspect of love. It requires us to expose ourselves, to be seen in our rawest, most authentic state. But it is only through vulnerability that we can truly connect with others, and more importantly, with ourselves. To understand ourselves is to embrace our vulnerability, not as a weakness, but as a strength. In allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, we invite love into our lives, not only from others, but also from within. Self-love is born from the ability to be vulnerable with ourselves, to look at our flaws, our imperfections, and our fears, and to accept them with compassion. When we accept ourselves in our vulnerability, we create the conditions for love to blossom, both within and outside of ourselves. The process of self-understanding also involves understanding our relationship with our own emotions. We all experience a range of emotions, from joy and excitement to sadness and anger. Yet many of us struggle with certain emotions, either suppressing or denying them. We often associate negative emotions with weakness or inadequacy, and as a result, we push them away. But emotions are not enemies, they are messengers, guiding us toward greater self-awareness and understanding. Love cannot fully manifest if we are unable to accept and understand the full spectrum of our emotions. When we allow ourselves to experience and process our emotions, we gain a deeper insight into who we are and what we need. Through emotional awareness, we cultivate empathy and compassion, not only for others, but for ourselves as well. This is the foundation of self-love. As we begin to understand ourselves on this deeper level, we naturally develop a sense of inner peace. Peace arises from acceptance, the acceptance of who we are, both the light and the shadow, the strengths and the weaknesses. This inner peace becomes the fertile ground from which love can grow. When we are at peace with ourselves, we are no longer at war with our own desires, fears, or imperfections. We no longer seek validation from external sources or measure our worth based on the opinions of others. Instead, we recognize our intrinsic value and the love that resides within us. This self-acceptance allows us to be open to the love of others, as we no longer need others to fill the voids within us. We are whole in ourselves, and it is from this place of wholeness that love can flow freely. It is important to remember that the journey of self-understanding is not a destination. It is a lifelong process. We are always evolving, always growing, always learning more about ourselves. With each new layer of self-awareness, we unlock new depths of love, both for ourselves and for others. The more we understand ourselves, the more we can offer love freely and abundantly. Love is not a finite resource, but an infinite energy that grows and expands as we do. The more we understand who we are, the more we are able to give and receive love in ways that are authentic, meaningful, and transformative. Love is often regarded as something simple, something pure, something we long to experience in its idealized form. But the truth about love, if we are to understand it in its full depth, requires us to move beyond the romanticized notion of love as something solely bright, flawless, and without blemish. True love, the love that is enduring, transformative, and meaningful, is not found in perfection or in the absence of pain and conflict. Rather, it arises through the integration of all parts of ourselves, our light and our shadow. The tension and harmony between these forces, when understood and embraced, become the foundation for genuine love. It is only through acknowledging and accepting the totality of our being that we can experience the full spectrum of love in all its richness. Human beings are complex creatures, each of us carrying with us a combination of strengths, vulnerabilities, desires, fears, and contradictions. For most of us, however, we are taught to reject certain aspects of ourselves. We are encouraged to strive for perfection, to present ourselves as strong, happy, and put-together individuals who never show weakness or fear. From a young age, many of us internalize messages that certain feelings, desires, or traits are not acceptable. Traits that are deemed negative or unattractive are often pushed into the depths of our unconscious minds. We repress parts of ourselves, thinking that they are unworthy of love or acceptance. But in doing so, we deny ourselves the full experience of love. For love cannot exist in the absence of wholeness. The truth is, love is not a perfect, unblemished ideal. Rather, love emerges when we accept both the light and the shadow within us. Love is a force that can only flourish when we embrace all of who we are, not just the parts that we like or the traits we think are acceptable, but also the parts that make us human, the parts that are messy, imperfect, and vulnerable. When we acknowledge and accept our shadow, the aspects of ourselves that we are reluctant to face or show to the world, we allow space for love to grow in the most profound and transformative way. This balance between light and shadow is crucial for creating authentic, lasting love. Too often we search for love outside of ourselves, thinking that the perfect relationship, the perfect partner, or the ideal circumstances will provide us with the love we seek. But this kind of love is based on illusion, on the idea that love exists only in the absence of imperfection. True love, however, is not about perfection, it is about acceptance. And that acceptance must encompass all aspects of who we are. It is when we begin to integrate our light and our shadow that we understand the deep nature of love, because love is not about denying our flaws, but about learning to accept them and find strength in them. When we confront and accept our shadow, we begin to build a relationship with ourselves that is rooted in compassion and understanding. This self-compassion allows us to extend compassion to others. When we understand our own struggles, our own fears, and our own weaknesses, we are better able to accept the struggles, fears, and weaknesses of those around us. Love that arises from this understanding is deep and unshakable because it is based on genuine empathy. We no longer see others as perfect beings that must meet certain standards of behavior or appearance. Instead, we recognize that they too are complex and multidimensional. Just as we accept our own imperfections, we can embrace the imperfections of others, and in doing so, love them fully, without judgment or expectation. The idea of integrating our shadow is not about creating a false sense of unity or pretending that we are without flaws. Rather, it is about embracing the full spectrum of our humanity. It involves facing the parts of ourselves that we may have hidden away, often due to fear, shame, or past trauma. These aspects, our vulnerabilities, our anger, our jealousy, our insecurities, are not inherently bad or unlovable. In fact, they are the very parts of ourselves that, when accepted and understood, allow us to grow and connect with others on a deeper level. Love does not require us to be flawless. It requires us to be real, to be human, to be present in our full experience. One of the most important aspects of integrating our shadow is acknowledging that our flaws and imperfections are not a reflection of our worth. Far too often, we equate being imperfect with being unworthy of love. This belief can be deeply ingrained, especially if we have grown up in an environment that values perfectionism or external validation. But the reality is that perfectionism is an illusion. It also creates barriers between ourselves and others, as we are afraid to show our true selves for fear of rejection or judgment. True love requires the courage to let go of this need for perfection and embrace vulnerability instead. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, when we let go of the mask that we wear to protect ourselves from rejection, we invite love into our lives in its purest form. Vulnerability is not weakness, it is the ultimate act of strength. It is the willingness to be seen in our fullness, both the light and the shadow, without fear of judgment. Only when we accept ourselves in this way can we truly experience love, for love is only possible when we allow ourselves to be fully known. This process of integrating the light and the shadow is ongoing. It is not a one-time event, but a continuous journey of self-discovery and self-acceptance. As we grow and evolve, new aspects of ourselves may emerge, and we must remain open to accepting and integrating them. Sometimes we may face moments of discomfort or struggle as we confront the parts of ourselves that we have previously rejected. These moments, though challenging, are opportunities for growth. They are invitations to go deeper into the work of self-acceptance and to uncover new layers of love that were previously hidden from our awareness. Moreover, integrating our shadow allows us to create a more authentic connection with others. When we embrace the fullness of our being, we are able to connect with others in a way that transcends superficial interactions. We no longer need to wear masks or pretend to be something we are not. Instead, we can show up as our true selves, knowing that we are worthy of love, flaws and all. This authenticity fosters deeper, more meaningful relationships because it invites others to do the same. When we accept ourselves fully, we give others permission to accept themselves as well. In this way, love becomes a shared experience, built on mutual understanding and acceptance. It is important to note that this process of integration does not mean that we are free from struggle, pain, or difficulty. Life is inherently complex, and the journey towards self-acceptance and wholeness is filled with challenges. However, it is through these challenges that we learn and grow. The difficulties we face in life are not obstacles to love. They are the very experiences that shape and deepen our capacity for love. Through the trials we endure, we come to understand the strength and resilience that lies within us, and it is through this understanding that we are able to love ourselves and others more deeply. Love is one of the most powerful forces that can shape our lives and experiences, yet it remains one of the most elusive and misunderstood. People often look for love in specific external places, in romantic relationships, in the approval of others, or in the validation of societal standards. Yet there is a deeper truth about love that lies in understanding the universal patterns and forces that guide human behavior. These forces, sometimes referred to as archetypes, are deep, unconscious patterns that shape the way we connect with others, the roles we play, and the nature of our relationships. Understanding these archetypes and the universal forces that underlie them can help us transcend the surface-level experience of love and move into a deeper, more profound connection with both ourselves and others. The human experience is shaped by recurring patterns of behavior, desires, and conflicts that transcend individual experience and span across time and culture. These patterns are not random or isolated. They are universal, present in myths, stories, religions, and cultural traditions across the world. Archetypes are the primordial images, motifs, and symbols that arise in our collective unconscious, representing fundamental human experiences and drives. They manifest in our individual lives and shape our relationships, as they influence the way we perceive ourselves and others, how we act, and how we relate to the world around us. One of the most powerful ways in which these archetypes influence our understanding of love is by shaping the roles that we assume in relationships. Each of us carries within us certain archetypal energies, whether consciously or unconsciously. These energies influence the roles we play in love and relationships, such as the lover, the caregiver, the hero, or the rebel. These archetypes are not fixed. They can shift and evolve over time, depending on our life experiences and the context in which we find ourselves. Understanding these archetypes and their influence on our behavior can help us break free from limiting patterns and create more authentic, fulfilling relationships. For example, the lover archetype represents the yearning for connection, intimacy, and deep emotional bonds. Those who are strongly connected to this archetype may find themselves drawn to passionate romantic relationships, seeking to experience the fullness of love. However, this archetype can also carry with it a tendency toward idealization, where the individual places their partner on a pedestal and expects them to fulfill all of their emotional needs. This can lead to disappointment and disillusionment when the relationship fails to live up to these high expectations. Understanding the lover archetype can help individuals find balance by recognizing that love is not about perfect connection, but about embracing vulnerability, imperfection, and the complex emotions that come with genuine intimacy. The caregiver archetype, on the other hand, represents the desire to nurture, protect, and care for others. Those who identify with this archetype may feel deeply fulfilled by acts of service and by creating a safe, loving space for others to grow and thrive. However, the caregiver archetype can also lead to self-sacrifice, where the individual neglects their own needs and desires in favor of others. This dynamic can result in resentment, burnout, and an imbalance in relationships. Understanding the caregiver archetype can help individuals recognize the importance of self-care and boundaries, so that they can give and receive love in a healthy, sustainable way. The hero archetype, often associated with strength, courage, and overcoming adversity, plays a significant role in our understanding of love as well. Those connected to the hero archetype may be driven to prove their worth, to overcome challenges, and to fight for the greater good. In relationships, the hero archetype may manifest as a person who is fiercely protective and determined to solve problems for their partner. While this can be a valuable trait in certain circumstances, it can also lead to an overemphasis on fixing others or on being seen as the rescuer. This can create an imbalance in the relationship where one partner is constantly in need of support and the other is always assuming a position of strength. Understanding the hero archetype can help individuals move away from the need to save others and instead focus on partnership, equality, and shared growth. Similarly, the rebel archetype represents the desire for freedom, independence, and the challenge to societal norms and expectations. Those who identify with the rebel archetype may be drawn to relationships that break away from conventional patterns, seeking unconventional or non-traditional forms of love. While this can lead to exciting, adventurous connections, the rebel archetype can also struggle with commitment or with embracing the vulnerability required for deeper emotional intimacy. Understanding the rebel archetype can help individuals find balance between their desire for freedom and their need for connection, enabling them to form relationships that honor both their individuality and their shared commitment to their partner. Recognizing the archetypes that influence our behaviors and relationships is not about labeling or boxing ourselves into fixed roles. Rather, it is about understanding the universal forces that shape our experiences and recognizing the patterns that emerge in our lives. These archetypes are not inherently good or bad. They simply reflect different aspects of the human experience, and each has its own gifts and challenges. When we understand these archetypes, we gain insight into our own motivations, desires, and behaviors, which allows us to engage in relationships with greater authenticity and clarity. By acknowledging and embracing these universal archetypes, we also become more aware of how they shape our relationships with others. Each person we encounter in our lives also carries these archetypal energies, which means that our connections with others are often influenced by the same patterns. When we recognize that our partners, friends, or family members may be acting out of archetypal roles, we can respond with greater empathy and understanding. We are no longer caught in surface-level misunderstandings or conflicts, but can instead see the deeper forces at play in our interactions. This awareness helps us to build relationships that are rooted in mutual respect, understanding, and love. In addition to influencing the roles we play in relationships, archetypes also help us understand the dynamics of love itself. Archetypal patterns can shed light on how we give and receive love, and how we approach the experience of intimacy. For example, the archetype of the wise old man or woman represents the energy of wisdom, guidance, and deep understanding. Those who are connected to this archetype may find themselves drawn to relationships where they can offer advice, mentorship, or emotional support. In love, this archetype represents the desire for profound connection, grounded in mutual respect and shared wisdom. However, the wise archetype can also lead to an imbalance if one partner assumes the role of the teacher while the other remains in the role of the student. In such a dynamic, the love between partners may lack the balance of equality and mutuality that is essential for a truly fulfilling relationship. Similarly, the archetype of the child represents innocence, playfulness, and vulnerability. Those who are connected to this archetype may approach love with a sense of wonder, joy, and openness, always eager to experience the newness of life and love. This archetype brings a sense of freshness and spontaneity to relationships, but it can also make individuals more susceptible to being hurt or taken advantage of. In order for love to thrive, individuals connected to the child archetype must find ways to embrace their vulnerability while also protecting themselves from emotional harm. Understanding these archetypal energies allows us to recognize when we are out of balance, when we are playing a role that no longer serves us or that is limiting our capacity to experience authentic love. We may find that we are stuck in a pattern of seeking approval or validation from others, or that we are over-identifying with a particular role, such as the caregiver or the hero, at the expense of our own emotional well-being. By becoming aware of these patterns, we can begin to move beyond them and create relationships that are more fulfilling, balanced, and authentic. Love, in its deepest sense, is not limited by the roles we play or the archetypes we embody. It transcends these surface-level dynamics, reaching into the core of our being and connecting us with the universal truths that bind us all. By recognizing and understanding the archetypes that shape our behavior, we move closer to a love that is not only more authentic, but also more connected to the eternal forces that govern the human experience. Understanding these archetypes helps us see love as something greater than ourselves, something that connects us to all of humanity, and something that grows and expands as we deepen our understanding of ourselves and others. Ultimately, love comes to us when we understand the deeper, archetypal forces that shape our lives and relationships. It is when we align ourselves with these universal energies, recognizing the roles we play and the dynamics we engage in, that we open the door to a deeper and more profound connection. Love becomes not something we need to search for, but something that flows naturally from our understanding of ourselves, others, and the eternal patterns that unite us all. When we move beyond the surface and into the depths of our own being, we find that love is always present, always waiting for us to recognize it, embrace it, and share it with the world. In conclusion, the journey toward understanding love is not about seeking it in external places, nor is it about expecting it to fit into a perfect mold. True love, the kind that transcends fleeting emotions and superficial experiences, is rooted in a deep understanding of oneself and the world around us. As we explore the first key point, we recognize that love begins within. When we understand and accept ourselves, including our flaws, vulnerabilities, and desires, we create the conditions for love to flow naturally. It's only when we stop searching outwardly and turn inward that we realize love is not something to be found, but something to be acknowledged and embraced within. The second key point reveals that love is not about perfection or denying our imperfections, but about integrating all aspects of our being, the light and the shadow. True love can only flourish when we accept ourselves fully, as well as others, with all their complexities. When we stop hiding from or rejecting parts of ourselves, we unlock the deepest forms of connection and empathy. It is through this acceptance of both our strengths and our weaknesses that love becomes transformative, not just for ourselves, but for our relationships with others. Finally, the third key point underscores the role of archetypes in our experience of love. These universal patterns, present within us all, shape the ways we engage in relationships, the roles we play, and how we give and receive love. By understanding these archetypal forces, we gain insight into our behaviors, our desires, and our conflicts. This understanding helps us navigate love more authentically, moving beyond superficial roles to create deeper, more meaningful connections with others. When we truly understand these elements, the self-awareness that births love, the integration of our light and shadow, and the archetypal forces that shape our relationships, we come to realize that love is not a goal or a destination. Love is a living, breathing force that is always present within us. It is through self-understanding, acceptance, and the conscious recognition of these universal patterns that love comes to us. When we understand this, love will no longer feel like something we need to search for or chase. It will come to us effortlessly, naturally, and unconditionally, filling our lives with the depth, richness and connection we all desire.